Ibanyak, Professor Pratikno, Rector of the UGM, Paedi Pratomo, my colleague in Berlin, Pak Priyobrianto, Pak Mahendra Hatta, the coordinator, and of course, lieber Professor Sauerborn, the Deutsche Koordinator, dear deans, directors. It's a great pleasure for me to be here today for the kick-off meeting for the Inter-University Consortium for Global Health. A pleasure even if I had to get up this morning at 4 o'clock, which had been impossible in my younger days when I was traveling with my backpack, because before 10 o'clock in the morning, no life. Nowadays I'm older, but before 5 o'clock in the morning, no life. So it's an early morning adventure, but I'm truly saya senang baba saya bisa bicara dengan Anda. Now, looking at the initiative we are inaugurating, kickstarting today, I think it's a very important contribution for the improvement of health services in Indonesia. So I'm very happy that Germany is part of it. As you already mentioned it, Professor Sauerborn, our country is well known for its high standards of medical equipment. It's also known for a pretty well-developed system of screening tests. So there are definitely many opportunities for bilateral cooperation in this area. Although if it comes to screening and medical checks, I wonder how many of you are medical doctors or have a medical background. Please raise your hand. Okay, then I will tell you a little story. Years ago, I was supposed to be posted to Slovenia, a tiny little country. I had to undergo medical checks in the foreign ministry. And they told me, oh, there might be a major heart problem with you, so you need to undergo more checks. So I was really very nervous. I went to the hospital. They did all kind of checks on a bicycle, etc. with me. And then the doctor who was checking me came to me with a very sober face, looking more serious like you, Eddie. looking at me, and saying, Mr. Witschel, I tell you something, I give you one recommendation. Keep away from doctors. So I tried that, and still I'm here with many doctors. However, you don't have to check me to examine me, so I'm on safe ground. Now, since I'm not an expert in medicine and global health, I wanted probably to tell you a little bit more about the broad framework of bilateral scientific cooperation between Germany and Indonesia. And if I say so, that is not only a broad framework, it's a broad framework with deep roots, with a very long tradition. In fact, the cooperation in science and technology already started in the 1960s when scientists visited each other, and especially young Indonesians were looking for a challenging environment for their scientific work. Of course, there's one outstanding personality who comes to mind. His name is Bakhrudin Yusuf Habibi, or Rudi Habibi, who studied in the early 1960s in Aachen and made his PhD there in 1965. I was 11 years old there, and he had the PhD already. Now, a little bit later, a few years later, Germany and Indonesia were fast in formalizing the bilateral relations, ST, science and technology relations. So in 1979, a formal agreement was signed by the then Minister for Science and Technology, who of course was Rudi Habibi, and the German Ambassador Schödel. That shows in Indonesia you can make career, you can become minister. When you study, in Germany only ambassador. So chances are definitely better here. So this 1979 agreement listed some areas of cooperation, But even more importantly, it promised to assist and help each other promoting the relations through easy visa and customs regulation. So if I look at some of our problems, or if we together look at some of our problems today to get research permissions or customs clearance, I wonder whether some people in Jakarta have forgotten the 1979 agreement. So we use our drums a little bit and hopefully get the message to Jakarta. Looking at the areas of cooperation, it will come as no surprise to you that they have changed over the last 30 years. At the beginning, the focus was more on big industrial technology, like aerospace, aeroplane, also nuclear energy. During the last 10 to 15 years, however, the soft sciences and environmental issues have started to play a much bigger role. We talk about public health, we talk about changing environment today. In a broader framework, the three main areas of German-Indonesian scientific cooperation are biotechnology and biodiversity, marine science, and forest research. All, of course, linking into each other. Again, no surprise why biodiversity. Indonesia is simply the country of mega, super biodiversity. You have more species of mammals, birds, butterflies, plants than any other country in the world. Indonesia, together with Brazil and Australia, you're one of the top 3 countries with the largest number of endemic species. More than 10,000 plants or plant species are found solely, only, hanya, in Indonesia. So therefore, Indonesia offers a unique opportunity to screen the vast resources of biodiversity, also, not only, also for the development of novel pharmaceutical and industrial compounds. The good thing with biodiversity is, when I talk about 10,000 species, that there is with all likelihood a significant part of native biodiversity which still has to be discovered and documented. The bad side is that due to environmental degradation, to logging, to global warming probably, this rich biodiversity is under permanent threat, and probably some species are being extinct over the days and weeks and months and years we work together. Anyway, Germany and Indonesia have agreed to intensify their cooperation on biodiversity by adopting recently a white paper, Biodiversity and Health, and by identifying joint projects in the coming months. Furthermore, we have a pretty strong cooperation between the Leibniz Center for Biodiversity in Berlin and LIPI on the issue of research collections, which has been already implemented last year by signing a memorandum of understanding. As part, ladies and gentlemen, of cooperation in biotechnology, the cooperation in marine science started back in 2000 with a workshop in Purwakarta. The so-called SPICE program, SPICE stands for Science for the Protection of Indonesian Coastal Water Ecosystems, SPICE, is running now in its 3rd phase. Coral reefs, mangroves, and the role of the ocean as a depository in the CO2, in the carbon dioxide balance, are just a few examples of the work that's being done in that context of SPICE. And I mean, talking about scientific cooperation, you can do a lot of research in Germany, but don't try to do research on mangroves and coral reefs in the Baltic Sea or in the Atlantic. You will definitely fail. So that is why this research cooperation is not just to do something good, but simply because Indonesia is the perfect partner in that context. So we also profit from you. It's vice versa. It's on eye level. Of course, if I talk about scientific cooperation and water, it would not be complete without mentioning the establishment of the tsunami early warning system. If you think back to these horrible days when the tsunami hit Aceh, thousands of people being killed, homeless, a lot of money being mobilized, a lot of help being directed to Aceh, but even more importantly, within a few weeks after the disaster hit, the German government decided together with Indonesia to build up a tsunami early warning system. That was courageous because there was no specific experience on either side with such a system, and yet a consortium of German research institutions started their work with Indonesian partners. At peak times, we had around 100 German scientists working on the project. Until now, some 53 million euros, that is roughly 75 million US dollars, have been spent on the system. Now, spending is one thing, asking for results is another one, and here I come with the results. Today, we have a very sophisticated system in place. I've visited it. It's really fascinating. You have a huge screen there. If you have, let's say, somewhere in Ternate, an earthquake, Richter scale 4.5, you have a small alarm. If it's a specific earthquake, then you have a louder alarm. If there are more earthquakes of a similar magnitude and type in the vicinity, you have a big alarm, and then immediately the computers start calculating, will that be just an earthquake, maybe at a certain depth and of a certain magnitude, or due to its magnitude, the various places and the type of the earthquake, will it cause a tsunami, and if so, where will the tsunami hit? So it's really giving precise information on potential tsunamis for Indonesia, but beyond that, for the neighboring coastal states along the Indian or around the Indonesian Ocean, that system also provides quick and reliable data. So really an impressive piece of joint work and something which has long-lasting, helpful results for Indonesia and for your neighboring coastal states, including, by the way, Sri Lanka, India, so far away on the other side of the Indonesian Ocean. The system works well, and I think we have all reason to be proud of it. From water to steam. I'm a lawyer. I was lousy in chemistry and physics, but I still know that normally at about 100 degrees, water turns into steam. The steam we're talking here about is a bit hotter. Don't touch it, don't try to boil your eggs with it. It's geothermal energy, and Indonesia, sitting on that ring of fire, of course, is a country where you have probably the best conditions worldwide for using geothermal energy. However, Indonesia so far uses only 4% of its existing known geothermal energy resources to produce energy. Therefore, our joint research projects are focusing on the development of new methods to identify sustainable resources and how to use them safely. Both is tremendously important, because if you start drilling, if you start trying to explore or even to exploit, you don't want to waste too much money with drilling done at the wrong place. One drill might be 5 to 10 million US dollars. So yes, you want to make sure that you drill at the right place. And the second, of course, is use it safely. You don't want to have another mud volcano. I think certain figures also known in the political world they won't give a comment on that. So sustainable resources and how to use them safely, that is what we do in the framework of our scientific cooperation with regard to geothermal energy. We also plan to build a pilot power plant in Lahendong in North Sulawesi, so as to combine the drilling with really the application of steam and run a pilot plant in an environmentally friendly but also reliable way. Away from water and steam to something which is very important to probably public health, certainly for climate issues, forest research. Forest research is also an area of intensive German-Indonesian cooperation. It's funded by the German Research Association, and it's focusing on the impact the destruction of natural rainforests has from the angle, from the perspective of natural sciences, but also from the angle, the viewpoint of social science. What does it mean for local population living from the fruits of rainforests, or people living at the banks of a river which comes from a rainforest area, which is then logged so that you have much more mud in the water and finally maybe no more water at all. So both natural sciences and social sciences are looking at the impact of deforestation. In that broad area of water, forest, etc., I would like to mention one more project. Of course, that is not referring to Gajah Mada, and Rector, you will forgive me if I mention it because it's Universitas 11 Maret in Solo. So together with that university and the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, a project on undersurface rivers in Bribin, not far from here, has been developed. It's karst area, so there's not very much surface water. However, there are fast-running undersurface rivers. So in a big cave, the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, together with the university, built in a mid-sized turbine so as to generate enough electricity for about 80,000 people and have enough surplus energy to pump up water and to irrigate the nearby villages, again about 80,000 people, so that they have better harvests despite being in a karst area where the soil is normally quite dry and bad. An interesting project because there are some karst areas here in the vicinity which might be developed together using that technology. Having just mentioned these 3 or 4 areas on our bilateral cooperation, I also would make some comments, remarks on science policy in our countries. And forgive me if they are sometimes somewhat critical. If I'm critical, and Paedi, you can confirm that it's not because I'm arrogant, cynical, knowing everything better. Also, my wife tells me always that I know everything better. But because I like to be here in Indonesia. I have a genuine concern for that country. I want Indonesia to move ahead, to get better, because it's a beautiful country with nice people. Now, looking at Indonesia, in the last years, Indonesia has been undertaking some major efforts in developing a national innovation system, and that has to be praised. There's the Committee Inovasi Nasional, which has contributed and is contributing with a variety of proposals. Science indeed has become an important issue in Indonesia, and Germany is a partner in developing more efficient and effective structures in science and innovation. So more than 10 years ago, in 2002, Germany has evaluated the Indonesian scientific architecture or landscape. The so-called Periscope study, written by the Fraunhofer Society, included many proposals made to improve the effectiveness of the science, technology, innovation system and to create more synergies. One of the results was the establishment of business technology centers to improve cooperation of science and business. And that will be and remain a key issue for an improved performance of science and technology in the future. Looking at the German side, we are, compared to Indonesia, poor to some extent. We have no oil, no gas, hardly any coal, no gold, no diamonds, no nothing. So we are really forced to use our brains, otherwise we cannot perform successfully on international markets. And that, of course, resulted in the clear need to put significant funding in place to support science and technology. Therefore, the budget of the Federal Ministry for Education and Research was raised in the last years on an average of 9 to 10% every year. So on a whole, even bigger, and still not sufficient, I presume, would be your comment, still not sufficient. I knew it, I'm able to predict the future sometimes, and I do agree. On a whole, Germany is spending now around 2.8% of its gross domestic product on science and technology. Good number, but still below 3%, so insufficient. The equivalent number for Indonesia is officially 0.08% of the gross domestic product, and that leads, to be polite, that leaves room for improvement. I think nobody will contradict here. But there is another point. If we talk about science and technology and innovation, where are Indonesian industry and manufacturing? In Germany, about 2/3 of the S&T, science and technology expenses, come from the private sector. Here in Indonesia, my understanding is that private sector is still very, very low in terms of contributing to what you are doing at the universities, what you are doing in think tanks. So it's also important to bring that message to industry, to society. If you want to build a modern Indonesia, do not stand idle, do not look at the US, Australia, Germany. Do it here, but also pay for it. No science without money. A third important element, which I should stress, is that international cooperation in science and technology, international S&T cooperation, is very important and has been very important for Germany. It's a main pillar of Germany's science policy. Therefore, already in 2008, the German cabinet approved a strategy on internationalization in science and technology. And at center point is the cooperation with emerging and developing countries, especially in Asia. Again, that is not charity. That is not because we Germans are so good, etc. We are maybe not bad, but we do it because we believe it's also helpful for us. It's helpful for others, but helpful for us. Why? Because Asia is one of the most dynamic areas in the world, not only in economic, but also in scientific terms. So a lot is going on here. If you talk about, ladies and gentlemen, science and technology, research, penelitian, then of course you must not forget education, pendidikan. No good science without good education. And here, of course, we need and we should mention the German Academic Exchange Service, the DAAD, Dr. Janssen in Jakarta. So the DAAD, the German Academic Exchange Service, is offering a wide variety of master and PhD scholarships for Indonesian students in Germany, by the way, both in English and in German. So it's the main actor in the field of education worldwide. Currently, there are about 2,500 students from Indonesia studying in Germany. This number has been constant, maybe slightly increasing over the last years. However, it's much less than the 10 to 15,000 Indonesians studying in Germany we had in the era of former President and Minister Habibie. Yet 2,500 is a good number. It's the largest number of Indonesian students in Europe, so we are ahead of the Netherlands, of the UK, of France. However, we have to compete with Australia, Japan, China, Korea, US, not easy, and therefore we work hard to increase that number. Both of us, Paedi and I, we have been obliged by my big boss, Chancellor Merkel, your big boss, Bapak President SPW, to increase the number of Indonesian students in Germany and German students in Indonesia. Of course, Bapak President thinks mainly about engineering, but maybe there's a bit of room for medical and other purposes, maybe even lawyers, Dr. Wagenknecht. So more should be done in order to bring more students to Indonesia and to Germany. Of great help in that context might be the role of the about 30,000 Indonesian alumni who have studied in Germany and returned to Indonesia. They are important bridge builders. They are important competitors of us in terms of being ambassadors of our country to the other side. So we like to work with our alumni, and we know to appreciate their role to bring our two countries and academic societies together. It goes without saying that an Indonesian studying in Germany has a very good chance to have later on a well-paid job both in Germany and in Indonesia. We believe in brain gain, not brain drain. In most cases, you will see that people go for some years to Germany, return to Indonesia, and normally it's a good story for both countries and for the people involved. In terms of course, advertising, informing young students what they could do, be it students or postgrads or doctoral students or so, the German Academic Exchange Service is doing individual counseling. They are doing major events at universities. We participate in the European Fair of Higher Education taking place in Surabaya on the 9th of October and in Jakarta on the 12th and 13th October. There are manifold websites in that context, so do not hesitate to ask us or the German Academic Exchange Service if it comes to sending students, to sending graduates to Germany. We always try to help. I will stop here, thanking you for listening so carefully, maybe finishing with one kind of commitment and final word. Scientific cooperation is one of the three main pillars of cooperation. So it's not only investment, business, it's not only politics. Science is a central pillar and we should develop it further. So terima kasih banyak dan cukup untuk saya.
Now let's move to the last keynote speech, which will be delivered by His Excellency Ambassador of Indonesia to the Federal Republic of Germany, Academic Dr.
Terima kasih Bapak Moderator, Pak Rektor yang saya hormati, Distinguished Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, my colleague, Ambassador Witzel, and representative of the Siamolek, Professor Schonborn of the Heidelberg University, and distinguished representatives of Universitas Jenderal Sudirman, Universitas Andalas, Universitas Diponegoro, dan Universitas Mula Warman. The distinguished members of the faculty, dear participants, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm also feeling quite happy this morning to be here with my close friend, my colleague, Pak Dubes Witzel. We met in Berlin last month, and we have a commitment to come together at this very prestigious university, Universitas Gadjah Mada di Yogyakarta. Pak Rector, I think the Embassy of Indonesia in Germany is quite ready, and we welcome very much the shaping of this cohesive grouping at the academic level to pull the wide-ranging expertise of the 5 excellent institutions of higher learning of those 5 universities. I'm quite confident that the synergy effect generated by bundling the academic prowess of these 5 universities will widen the horizons and scope of scientific, technical and managerial capacities of the Indonesian healthcare system to benefit and uphold not only tidak hanya the health of our fellow Indonesians, but also to contribute to the healthcare around the globe. Pak Witsel has mentioned many projects of our bilateral cooperations, and I would like only just to add several substance of the other coins of our bilateral relations on health sector especially. I think there are many priorities on our cooperation between Germany and Indonesia. We are now implementing the comprehensive partnership that we have already signed in Jakarta last July 2012 by Chancellor Merkel and Bapak Presiden Yudhoyono, and the designation of the health sector as one of the priority sectors of our bilateral cooperations, which also include economy. We have also cooperation in trade and investments. Education has been mentioned also as a priority, and science and technology, as you mentioned, and defense, as well as food security, energy security, and transportation has illustrated very well the importance and urgency the government of Indonesia attaches to the upgrading of the existing healthcare system of Indonesia. The Jakarta Declaration that we have signed has focused the Indonesian-German cooperations in the health sector on health equipment industry and technology, hospital management, healthcare, traditional medicine, and the development of capacity, insurance, and standardization of healthcare and food. I express my confidence that the Inter-University Consortium for Global Health will greatly contribute to achieving these goals set by the Jakarta Declarations. We have been having many meetings between the Gagas Lab and Spectaris. Gagas Lab stand for the Federation of Indonesian Healthcare Equipment Manufacturers, and Spectaris is German healthcare equipment manufacturers. They have been collaborating each other, and they have signed already the letter of intent or MOU to do more collaborations on those fields. And the Embassy of Indonesia in Berlin has been exerting its efforts in recent years to establish 7 centers of excellence as part of the partnership program between institutions of higher learning and research of both Indonesia and Germany. I would like to commend the creation of these institutes of public health established by Universitas Gadjah Mada and its partners. I express my hope that the academic expertise and knowledge of the 3 excellent universities, or 5 excellent universities in Indonesia and in Germany, especially Professor Renner, pool in this fine institute will also serve to enhance the Indonesian-German cooperation in the health sector. It also pleases me very much to impart to you that the Ministry of Health of Indonesia, by the facilitation of the embassy in Berlin, has just conducted a workshop on healthcare with German stakeholders. It was in August this year in Jakarta, and during that meeting, the Indonesian side laid out a blueprint for future cooperation as a proposal with the German partners. This blueprint mainly focuses its attention, among others, on human resources development and telemedicine or e-health system, creation of center of excellence for services for the treatment of cancer, neuromedicine, cardiovascular diseases, psychological illness, and lung illnesses through exchange of expert and managerial staff. Germany, on the other hand, offered assistance to Indonesia in the planning of hospitals, management of hospitals, telemedicine, e-health, and also to support the national resilience of medical devices. On the sidelines of the visit by President Yudhoyono only last March this year, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Indonesia, Kadin, had organized also a meeting with German counterparts to identify further potential areas of cooperation in the health sector, which could be explored and expanded in the very near future. And during that meeting, Kadin has forwarded a proposal to develop a German hospital in Indonesia. This is one thing that we are waiting for quite a long time, which could maybe become a test bed for pilot project for the application of modern German health technology. And within this context, the Embassy of Indonesia in Berlin has actively promoted a training program for the Indonesian nurses in Germany. This is a stepping stone to fathom the possibilities of entering into the labor market in Germany, especially in health sector, which is quite still very difficult to enter to the German market. It was in the month of May to July this year that 8 nurses from Tasikmalaya, West Java, have participated in training course at hospital in 3 German cities. And upon completion of the courses, 2 of these nurses were selected for the on-the-job training program lasting 9 months. So this is quite important for the nurses of Indonesia, especially from Tasikmalaya. They are then slated to be given a contract for a certain period to serve as nurses at the Marine House Klinikum in Germany. And with the current demand for about 2,000 nurses in the German hospital system, this nurse training program is one of the success stories in the Indonesian-German cooperation in the health sector. Bearing in mind that the German healthcare sector is considered to be difficult to enter for non-European Union countries, I have no doubt that this success will be a departing point for Indonesian nurses to enter the German healthcare market. So this is something which I need to discuss further with my colleague, Ambassador Wissel, for similar program in the near future. Ladies and gentlemen, the Indonesian-German bilateral relations have evolved from mutual cooperation to equal partnership, or we call it from friendship to partnership, during the 61 years of official relations. We established the German relation was into 1952. At the same time, we construct this building, the Gajah Mada main building was also inaugurated in 1952. And many have been achieved in all fields of interactions between our 2 countries through constructive and prudent efforts by both Indonesian and German stakeholders. Devising the future of this fruitful cooperation now to be continued in the architecture of comprehensive partnership, we seek for new avenues to catapult the cooperation to a higher trajectory. The cooperation, the constitution of this inter-university consortium for global health marks one of the cornerstones of our continued efforts to further enhance these constructive cooperations. And I'm quite confident that this distinguished grouping of academics and experts as well as of professional administrators will contribute not only to upgrading and fostering healthcare in Indonesia, where millions of Indonesians will stand to benefit. Much more than that, the very foundation of the Indonesian-German cooperation in the health sector has been bolstered by the establishment of this consortium. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the Inter-University Consortium for Global Health, to its founding members of all its academics, experts, and technicians and administrators for their thoughtful efforts and prudent guidance to improve the situation of healthcare in Indonesia. And I express my fervent hope, and at the same time I'm very much convinced that the Inter-University Consortium will pave the way for the incorporation of modern state-of-the-art German technology and know-how in healthcare to the Indonesian healthcare system. I would like to conclude my remarks by once again thanking the cooperation that has already been made by those 5 universities with University of Heidelberg, and we do hope that in the near future both embassies of Indonesia in Germany and the embassy of Germany in Jakarta could have and should continue the facilitations of those cooperation, especially in the health sector. I wish you all the best, and I thank you very much once again. Terima kasih. Vielen Dank.
Thank you very much, Pak Edi. And ladies and gentlemen, before we have